Welcome. It's Thursday morning. I'm talking kind of quiet because it's early, but I wanted to speak a little bit about how I learn Grasshopper. And just like any instrument, and if you think of guitar or piano, maybe you've got to practice scales, you've got to practice riffs, you've got to get good at it, have it in your mind, and almost like a karate move, you've got to use it with kind of empty mind and know that it's there for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these scripts, which would be familiar to people that have looked online. This is just a packed, jammed collection of a bunch of scripts. And why are they there? Well, I haven't cut and pasted them from anywhere. I've actually gone online, and I'm going to bring this over, and I'm going to reference one site that's got a style, but it's great to learn, and it's OM. It's instrumental. There's music playing behind it. They're fairly short scripts. They stay around 15 minutes or under. And when you become proficient at Grasshopper, you'll notice in these tutorials that the display names aren't full, the icons are on, there are no bifocal tools to learn, but you can keep pace and keep up with it. Whereas a year ago when I started, there was no way I could keep pace with these. It was too alien and new to me. But now I find just for practice, I'll take a day and maybe not generate any of my own scripts, but I will just click on any level of these and I will just do one. But what I've found, instead of just practicing other people's scripts, I bring them into my own library and I bring them into my own snippet tools. So what I'm going to show you here is, well, basically, I'm generating one right now. So if I take off all the visuals, I'm working through a tutorial right now fairly quickly to build one of their models. And in doing so, I'm able to highlight maybe the last two portions of it and what's happening. But if I was to look at that script, and I'm going to downsize this because it doesn't have to be so huge. Take a look at the script. It's about becoming comfortable and quick at working things. Like maybe there's a way of you working, and I put these into snippets, OM. And I've done it with a lot of other tutorials as well, but OM's the best because there's well over, I think there's 100 that you can just have and have quick reference to. Not that you want to copy and use these and take these models into your work and say they're yours, but there's areas of starting a script with an ellipse, going through a series and having it lofted, certainly finding center, locating its centroid and working off of the surface, the sense of normals and gaining control of that. And then there's actually this way of, putting through a range graph mapper, which he does constantly, and ending up with these very cool surfaces. The script isn't even half over, and yet I have all these little things that are at my disposal that I can quickly grab if I'm stuck in a script and I know there's something similar I want to do. I could simply go down there and say, well, I want to put a diagrid on it. So I'll pop that in there, and boom, I have a diagrid that's based on a surface. And that would be something parametric, and I'll go into that one and say, okay, well, how was that one generated? Well, that was generated through a domain off of a surface, so importing a surface, which is interchangeable. And I'll just take this off. In there, actually, let me take this off. There's finding center. There's evaluating the curve, moving away start distance and line. To find the end of those, to find a normal, and I interpolate and flip matrix, bring everything together and pipe it. It's a very simple little snippet script, and there it is. It generates something like that. That said, I could go down and I could say, well, here's another one. What was happening in that one? Well, that was generating something very similar, and this one's fairly complex. But if you look at the shape in one of the scripts, as I practice and mimic and play that scale, it's like listening to a song and be able to play along with it. That one's very similar to this one, which is a morph, and I've changed the object, but taking a structure and morphing, and you're going to find within that, maybe to go back to this past one, go back to this unit, what's happening in there? Well, there's starting with an arc, which has a form that I could actually take this. I mean, this is a nice little model because if I bump this range up to edit, say 2 units on the full rotation of pi, it's taking a time to think about because the script is actually, it's a fairly long script, so give it a second as it flies through and has its different components and sections. I should be into it now. I think I can take that one and I can edit over to just pull that range into 2. And now you'll see as it loads up and it has a profiler on it telling me how long the script is. I've got a means to make, something in the round. It's still loading in my window. But I've changed that shape that maybe if I start to manipulate and modify that script from that arc and moving through non-uniform scales, I'm not going to move it now and lofting it. He actually goes in and uses a Lunchbox tool. So there's a good use of a plug-in within that. He uses a color to notify a sphere that actually isn't in the script. You can't see it, but there's a sphere in there. There it is. That actually generates an attractor point. And I was like, well, what's an attractor point do? Well, an attractor point has to go through a remap. And then you get into the habit of finding distance, going through a bounds, a remap, and domain. And we're at 6 minutes now. And these little clusters that happen within this code are things you need to know about, like evaluating a curve again using a closest point tool. That's fairly common to be doing things like that. And you can see that it has an effect on scaling this basic geometry, actually moving that geometry in that case. And then you end up with that final loft. Now that tool itself is very similar to possibly something like this, which does almost the same thing. Let's go in here, hit unmove, another nice script. That's upside down now, but that's all right. Going in and using that graph mapper through the range to use a variable pipe as opposed to a regular pipe, which was in the first script. And you see there's few nodes patterns here, which deal with randomizing and using surface box, bounding box, and to basically map something onto the surface of something else. And then you can choose what you want to actually map over to it. And even though it's just a sphere with a very low poly count, I don't want to turn this too much, but say I change that poly count to like something like a triangle. Well, it's not really a triangle. It looks like a triangle from one angle, but it has a very low 3 and 3 UMB count. I could turn that and morph that whole system. And you see how fast these scripts run. So you get a sense of how I can slow down. What should be the order of my scripts so it's actually efficient? I'm not extruding and lofting and dealing in solids too early in the pattern. Let's jump over to this one. And I'm just going to run through them all in a sense of seeing similarities. Once again, this should look familiar. Looks very familiar with the box morph. So that one is an earlier code that started with the arc. He certainly developed it himself. He used a divide domain 2 and went into the same type of thing. Surface box, bounding box, had an object to map to it. And that's just a basic cube. So that cube can move very fast through that box morph and extruding it on different levels and throwing it through a nice color tool that you can see what it is. Still, I got like 3, and believe me, I could have hundreds that you pull up. But they're at quick disposal here. I give them names that kind of are reminiscent of what they do. Curve attractor, tower woven, arc morph, diagram. Those are things I've given it. I don't take credit for making them, but nobody has the rights to say, oh, that's my pattern of script. Like I'm the only one that has the ability to put those scripts together that way, like starting with a pentagon and moving that and using a cross-reference, which was actually a pretty cool tool. And what a system to end up with one. I love this little beginning. A single item moved in a direction like linear array, cross-reference, and moved again. You've got your XY. What a great beginning to anything that's fully parametric, say if I was to change the segment count of what that was. So a nice little system to start, and then you go into finding center and using your curve closest point and remapping it through a scale. There's definitely another area that you may want to group and know how to do that, like a little riff or a guitar riff, and then throws it into an extrusion that's actually being remapped, so it's affected by that curve that was brought in. You're like, well, where's that curve? Well, the curve was here, and I actually imported it. I could export that and extract that parameter, have it here as an object, and then I could start moving it around if I baked it into Rhino. You don't have to extract it like that, but if I baked it in, I would just have to reset that object as I change it and move it. It would then affect as I move around the screen. It would affect the geometry on that final form and how it was made. And of course, it's not referenced in there. But if I took that tool and said, okay, no, I want that to be my curve setting, and you can see how that affected it. And now, at that point, it updates as I move it. But that's his script, that's not mine. But there's no ownership of these basic snippets of one node going into another. And you may want to cluster this into one node, very similar to how this one fellow doesn't sell, he promotes remap. And when he brings in remap, it's like you tap on that and you see the cluster that actually was for him, because he's like, I'm going to use that so much, I'm just going to make that a cluster so I don't have to retype in all this stuff every time. So that's a nice little technique. Down here, and we're going on 10 minutes. Let's ungroup and see what's happening here. We can take this geometry and throw it back in invisible. What do we have here? We have a very cool woven form that, even though everything's lined up and piped and it's pretty simple to look at, you can go in and modify that. And I love this. 2 points, making circles. There's a technique here that he's used that is quite incredible, of actually putting 2 points into the same circle and 2 radii into the same circle in the correct order without merge tools, that he can actually do a line count on those and actually have this little script run with very few nodes. That's a great... Now, I would like to give Ohm credit for that, because I don't think I would have come up with that, and I haven't seen too many times of that in use. Then there's the shifting list of actually staggering points in lines. So a sense of flipping data and following different patterns. Like if I took that shape and went that way, it's going to go this way. But if I use the flip matrix, good use of it, you see how it translates into that. And then there's really a building of surfaces and throwing on the pipes. Nice assignment. What happens when you stagger this count not to -6 and to +6? You start to line things out. You start to have some real control over that. And although his script, if you watch the tutorial, doesn't do that, what a great way to think of caging something. I think it's just like twisting and knotting something. And that's referencing this kind of bringing the lines together as you rotate the points on the top circle with a different shift pattern than the other one, 6 in one direction and 5 in another. So you could line it up at 0, and then it's just going right from up and down. And if you lined up the other one, you'll find that it extends out, and then you know, they're doing the same thing, so there's no real point in doing that. But nice little shapes. Know those snippets. Like know what that does as a shift pattern. And what a great use of explode tree. Because this is one of the best examples I've seen early of realizing what is important in the tree section of the set section. We're at 12 and a half minutes. We'll just finish with this last script. And I'm just putting this out there. So rebuild a surface in Rhino. Control point, soft edit. So after you get a surface in there, that was the diagram I was talking about earlier. So if you go in there and you actually have a surface and you extract it, and you don't have to extract it that way, you bake it in a Rhino with this, make sure you join it. That surface is pretty awesome to throw on control points, and at that point, or rebuild it, point to move from, and say I move it up in that direction in a move. What happens when I throw on points? I can grab that one and move it this way. I can grab a rebuild. We'll just end with this, and he uses this as demo, rebuilding that curve, and let's get 12 on each. There you go. That's a little excessive, but now you can kind of grab in this direction. You pull that whole form up like that, and that's going to be pretty wild when you take your points back off, I would recommend, and bring that back into the surface. And now you've got this reacting diagrid that hopefully it functions. Let's see. Let's just get rid of this and see if we're surprised by it. And there it is. Take a second to load. There it is. You've just buckled and crushed that whole frame. And I think for people who really want to sculpt and work digitally and have been sculptors, they know the misfortune of things like miscasting and collapsing and breaking. And there's an aesthetics of ruin that people might like. And I think the engineer may never want to make a grid like this, because structurally, if you put it through a optimization, you'd find, oh, that's pretty weak in those areas for holding up the, the truss or the diagrid. But at this point, this is beautiful. And there's things happening in here pattern-wise. And what you're looking at is, oh, there's a whole bunch of ends here that are unresolved. So what actually is happening with those? What will my weld be like? To me, you look at the work of John Chambers, and you look at the work of Rauschenberg or Jasper Johns. You look at the American Expressionists, and you see this kind of use of chaos or explosion in the work. You may like this aesthetic, and there's no reason to keep that aesthetic out. No one has the right to direct your hand. No one has the right to tell you what to think. Anyway, I throw that in there, and I'm just going to take it all off because I'm working on my other script. Take those all off. Well, they're pretty crazy when you pull them all in. I mean, that's just wild. We're a wild world. Actually, I might end with that, but I'm going to take it off and say, no, I'm working on this script from Ohm, and I got to go.